Hi, Community Christian. Hi, kids, and happy Easter. I have a fabulous story for today, and it is called On That Easter Morning. The children clapped their hands and waved palm branches. Jesus is coming, they shouted gleefully. Jesus is coming to Jerusalem for the Passover, just like we are. The grown-ups were equally thrilled. If Jesus is coming to the capital city for the most important festival of the year, they whispered, then he must be coming to do something spectacular. Perhaps he is going to declare himself king and make us free again. God bless the king, shouted someone. At once, the whole crowd joined in. God bless the king. God bless the one who comes in God's name. Alleluia. At the center of the joyful uproar, Jesus and his disciples made their way along the road. Jesus was riding a donkey, waving at the crowds as if they were all his friends. They went up to the city and into the temple courtyard. It was like a marketplace with everyone getting ready for the festival. Traders were shouting, customers were haggling. Jesus gazed at the scene with anger and disbelief. Then he sprang into action. This is meant to be a house of prayer, he shouted. Get out at once. With surprising strength, Jesus overturned the tables and drove out the animals that were for sale. Coins jingled on the paving stones. Pigeons flew to the sky in a noisy whir of wings. The religious leaders looked very disapprovingly. It's that preacher from Galilee, they muttered. He claims to be telling people about God and God's kingdom. But he's just a troublemaker, and a dangerous one at that. After that, Jesus spent his days preaching, as he always did. He asked his disciples to make arrangements for them all to share a Passover meal together. On the chosen evening, they met in an upstairs room. Jesus stood up, took off his coat, and tied a towel around his waist. Then he brought a bowl of water and began washing his disciples' feet, just as a servant would. I am your teacher and your leader, he explained, but I have acted as your servant. I want you to follow my example and serve each other. Tonight, I am giving you a new commandment. As I have loved you, so you must love each other. The Passover supper was always more than a meal. It was a time for the people to remember how, long ago, God rescued them from their enemies and led them to a land where they could live in peace. While they were eating, Jesus took a piece of bread, gave a prayer of thanks, broke the bread, and gave it to his disciples. Take and eat it, he said. This is my body. Then he took the wine cup, gave thanks to God, and gave the cup to them. Drink it, all of you, he said. This is my blood. Then Jesus explained that God was going to make a new promise to his people. He said that his body was going to be broken and his blood was going to be shed. Yet, because of his suffering, his followers would be able to enter into God's kingdom. At the end of the evening, Jesus and his disciples left Jerusalem to find shelter for the night. They walked across the valley to an olive grove known as the Garden of Gethsemane. Once they were deep in the shadows, Jesus gathered them together. "You wait here," he said. "I want to be alone to pray." As he disappeared into the darkness, one of the disciples noticed something. "Judas Iscariot isn't here." "He slipped out early," replied one. "I think it has something to do with money," replied another. "He'll know to find us here in the usual place. We might as well try to get some sleep." They were barely awake when Judas returned. He was leading a large crowd of armed men. Judas had betrayed Jesus to his enemies, and they were coming to arrest him. Jesus was taken to a great council of priests and teachers of the law, their faces lit by 100 flickering lamps. "The things you are preaching to others are dangerous," they accused. "They go against our most sacred beliefs and traditions. Your teaching is a crime against God." Even though they could not prove their accusations, the religious leaders were determined to get rid of Jesus. In the morning, they led him to the Roman governor of Jerusalem, Pontius Pilate. "This man claims to be a king," they told him. Pilate was not convinced. However, he was concerned about keeping order in the city during the festival. So he appealed to the crowd outside his palace. "It is the custom for me to free a prisoner at Passover time," he announced. "Shall I set this man free?" The waiting crowd was in an angry mood. "Crucify him, crucify him," they shouted. Fearing a riot, Pilate agreed. The Roman soldiers mocked their prisoner. "You call yourself a king," they jeered. "Welcome to your coronation." They draped a cloak around him as if he were the emperor and pressed a crown of thorns onto his head. Then they beat him and hit him until he was worn out by all their violence. When they finished their fun, they loaded a wooden cross onto Jesus' shoulders and forced him to carry it to the hill called Calvary, which lay just outside the city walls. There, they nailed Jesus to the cross and raised it into position on the hilltop. 2 criminals were crucified on either side. Jesus prayed, "Forgive them, Father. They don't know what they're doing." As he hung there, the sky turned dark and the air grew cold. Miss Jen is getting emotional. Meanwhile, a man named Joseph, who was from the town of Arimathea, went to plead with Pilate to let him take Jesus' body. The late afternoon sun shone dimly as Joseph came to the place of execution. He wrapped Jesus' body in a linen sheet and laid it on a stretcher. A sorrowful little procession of Jesus' friends gathered. They carried the body to Joseph's rock-cut tomb. Gently, they laid it on a ledge in the dark cave before hurrying to roll the huge stone door in place. They had no time for the usual funeral customs. The sun was nearly setting, and the blood-red sky reminded them that the Sabbath day of rest was about to begin. When the Sabbath day was over, very early on Sunday morning, the group of women who had been at Jesus' burial went back to the tomb. They wanted to wrap the body in the proper way, with sweet-smelling spices among the folds of linen. To their dismay, they found the stone door rolled away. Cautiously, they stepped inside. "The body isn't there," one of them whispered. "I remember exactly where they put it." Then they saw them, 2 figures in shining clothes, standing in the dim light. "Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive?" they asked. "Jesus is not here. He has been raised to life." The woman hurried away to tell the astonishing news to the disciples. "The body has gone," they explained. "We don't know where it is." The one named Mary Magdalene persuaded 2 of them, Peter and John, to go and see for themselves. John ran faster and reached the tomb first, but Peter came racing up behind and went straight in. It was just as they were told. The body was gone. All that remained were the linen wrappings. The 2 men stepped outside into the dawn light. As the sky paled from gray to pearl, hope rose in their hearts. Perhaps the news was true. Perhaps Jesus really was alive. Mary Magdalene stood by the tomb, weeping. As she peered inside, she saw 2 angels. "Why are you crying?" they asked her. "They have taken away the body of Jesus," she said. "I know where they have put him." She turned around as she heard a voice and saw a figure silhouetted against the sky. "Why are you crying?" asked the person. "Who are you looking for?" "He must be the gardener," thought Mary. "Oh, sir," she said, "if you took the body away, please tell me where I can find it." "Mary," came the only answer. Then she knew she was looking at Jesus himself. The sun rose, shining gold in the clear blue sky. Mary knew for sure that this was good news for all of Jesus' friends and followers. Jesus was alive again. Not a king in this world, but the King of heaven. The dark power of death was defeated. God's own love lit the world on that Easter morning. I know, kind of a deep book, but that's the Easter story, and that's the one I wanted to share with you this week. I love you guys. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, which is actually Easter, and see all your cute little outfits and all that stuff. But let's always remember that Easter is so much more than chocolate bunnies and jelly beans and all that stuff. It's about Jesus. I love you guys. I'll see you next week. Ciao.